developments and discovered numerous innovative applications for nanotechnology. As it stands, nanotechnology has the potential to change life as we know it. Experts in the field believe that nanobots will, in the future, be fitted into our brains to connect us to the virtual world more readily and faster.
Le monde digital. Ce que nous voyons, c'est une sorte de fusion du monde physique, digital et biologique.
On appelle quelqu'un, on n'a même plus le réflexe de devoir prendre un appareil, ça se fait naturellement. La technique continue le corps.
Oui, vous parlez, vous dites je veux maintenant être connecté avec n'importe qui. Et d'abord vous avez les robots personnalisés. J'ai vu que M. Zuckerberg a prédit qu'à la fin de l'année, il va avoir son robot, son butler personnalisé qui est à sa disposition.
Comme dans Downton Abbey, on aura son butler personnel, son serviteur, son esclave.
Oui, mais il y a une différence. C'est un serviteur qui, avec l'intelligence artificielle, apprend et qui n'est pas seulement votre assistant pour des travaux manuels, qui peut vraiment être un pas.
Fire can be used to keep people warm and heat food, kill bacteria, or it can be used to burn down villages. And so this is an extreme example of weaponization of the medical profession. Once you understand how large of a sample set, how much human suffering they've allowed to put into this, developing it, the number of dollars, there's no way they're going to give this up. And this is here to stay. And the people in control that are, I'm sure, so seduced by its power that they rather see the human race go away before this does.
And so yesterday, there's a story that I'd like to share with you, and how far gone we are as a society, that they're doing this to individuals, unaware and non-consensual individuals in the realm of experiments and targeting dreams. So I guess we're all, at this point, we are all aware that we are at some point attached to a D-Wave supercomputer with our brain, be it not yet official, but enough to be aware of it that we are being kind of cyber-stalked by the D-Wave computer with electric dreams and artificial synchronicities and basically cyber stalking. It is against the law because we have the right to be free and privacy, etc. But they just tossed it out there, and the targeted individuals are the first to have the really bad and traumatizing experience with that. Having said that, we're all in on it, that's for sure, and that was the plan, and that's what the World Economic Forum is already exposing. We can read your thoughts and we can rewrite them, and there's going to be a tokenized society on like they don't have to ask us for consent, right? Let's not forget about that one. But anyway, that's where they wanted to go, and I'll make a video on that one as well to make it really short and clear as to what they want. They didn't ask us, and we have always the right to say no to that, and I think we should. If you really want to be your own individual, you should be against this. But anyway, last night, I had a targeted dream. I've had plenty in the beginning for 3 years, like horrendous, like all assassination and sexual terrible experiences with the EEG cloning. So that went a bit further than just receiving the dream. It was the real life experience and feels to go with that. And if you're being murdered in your dream in that way, you really have the experience of being murdered with the pain to go with that, and the sexual assault as well. So, but last night, yesterday I was speaking with a friend of mine on politics and how they are, she told me that they are, that they made a law that if you have a big house and you have a spare bedroom, then they decided that you need to let in a refugee if they want you to. So there's no sovereignty there. It's total breach of our first amendments in human rights, that you get to choose your own style of living. And now they're forcing a stranger in our home if they want that person in our home. And so I think that is appalling. We should first start to try and stop wars abroad. And if you want to bring people in, I truly understand that they need a refuge. I truly understand that, but it's a whole new ball game to force these people into homes of people that have, the right to their own space. So I think that is a hostile act in itself, to force that upon people. You don't get to choose who is in your home. Normally, if we introduce a partner in our lives, we get a chance to get to know each other and see if we get along. But our government thinks that, okay, refugee, extra home, and you need to accept that. So that is a no-go. And now the following is, at least it should be voluntary. Let's put it that way. And that's not how they drew the law. And but I didn't. I was like, okay, well, I'll fight it when it's there, because I do have spare bedrooms, and I'm not going to give them up for a stranger without my consent. And because I use the rooms myself, and it's my basic human rights to say no. But then I didn't think much of it then, because when we hang up, the conversation's over, and I go about my own ways, and then I went to bed, and finally I had a normal night's sleep. Whoa! Like, I'm going to so celebrate that this weekend. And but I did have an unusual targeted dream, which is created by the AI machine. Now, I have been into biblical religion lately, researching it and sharing beautiful Christian songs, because they are full of compassion and the warmth that I so long to see in the world, and I enjoy listening to them. And I think to the core that I have that in me as well. It's a way of life that I love to live that way. And so that is all registered. Everything is registered: what we think, what we see, what we feel, what we experience, and who we speak with, and what we Google. And so you have the Internet of Things, and there's the Internet of Bodies, and it's all connected now, but it's also connected to autonomous weapon system. And it's also connected to kind of D-Wave journeyman computer that can, whatever we think, it probably will type out and make images with that, and they can give it to you in an empathic way, or they can give it to you in a psychopathic way, or they can just make propaganda of it. And the last thing happened to me last night. I was dreaming, and I was thinking about it in my dream. I was like, what? This can't be mine. There were I'm going to give you the dream first, and then tell you how I feel about it. And I saw houses, and these houses were older, and it was like a zone of houses that were built with the point of like a noetic boat, where he was taking in two of a kind pairs of everything. And there was an entire village with noetic boat housing. And I'm sure you feel it coming. So that is a reference to the refugees that needed housing and the biblical element. So appealing to your religion or your way of thinking, like, you're gonna have to save these people because you had a prophetic dreams about noetic boats that were housing. And it's easy to fool a religious non-awake personality into thinking, okay, so this was a sign of God, and now I'm gonna have these people, I'm gonna have to take these people in because I dreamt it. It's easy to fool people that way. it's still against the law to force this on people. And as very much as I love to save people, and I do love to save people, but I think we should first just recognize that this is propaganda being forced into my brain, sauced as a religious prophetic message, which it isn't. It was the D-Wave computer propagandizing in my brain. And I'm appalled by it, actually, and we should be. And they've tried it with Morrison beer, but that was, I thought that was consensual, so I hope it was consensual, I'm not sure, during the COVID times. And because it would be better to, instead of having quarantine dreams by the fear of isolation during COVID that it brought with it, we are having quarantine COVID dreams. And it would be better to perhaps then have an electric dream that replaces that. Never mind that after the quarantine or during the quarantine, there was more alcohol abuse counted in the statistics. So I'm not sure if that was part of their alcoholic dreams that they were receiving. But dream targeting is a new thing. There's another example of dream incubation, dream targeting that it's already being unleashed is for the fact that I have two friends that do not know each other. One lives in the UK and another one lives with me in this village, and they're both dog lovers, which is a funny coincidence, and they don't know each other, like I said. And one started to tell me the dream, I think 6 months prior to the person that is my friend, and they started to both tell me a dreaming about a golden retriever, and the golden retriever got hit by a car, and they both saw the dog being so wounded with blood and everything, and they felt how upsetting it was and traumatizing it was for the dreamer, they themselves, and they saw the dog dying, and that was it. It went on, but they took that feeling with them during the day. On what an awful dream that was, and it was the exact same dream that they both received, and they do not know each other, and yeah, it was like the dream was recycled from one end and one part of the world to another part of the world, and I don't know how many people got that same dream. If you had that dream as well, then please let me know in the comments, because I'm very curious how many people get that same dream and in how many countries it occurred. The difference was, I found the difference was with my friend. She was more on thinking those dreams were esoteric, as they are. They normally should be, and there should be a message in there for the person that you can decipher for yourself. And she was not as upset during the day as the other person that isn't into dream decoding. But there you go again. There's another example of taking a dream as a religious aspect that it should be, and then deciphering it as you should if you're able to. And the now synthetic prophesizing, which holds no purpose at all other than for them beta testing whether or not it's working in the way they want it to. Dream incubation has been done since ancient times, and it should be, and it should remain from God and God solely, and your own personal experiences that you transmutate alchemically during the nights. And I don't think there's place for advertisement there, and yet that's exactly what seems to be happening. And if not for advertisement, then at least to because all these dreams were traumatizing. They were all nasty dreams, so what could be the purpose of that? me myself have had the Norman dreams, the psychopath data set um, that they took from Reddit, all data from internet that was about extremes. They gathered, made a data set about it, and they made Norman from that. And I'll show you that later. What Norman sees in an inked blot, instead of an empathic AI that is filled with the normal. The normal communications on internet, and so you can make a fascist bot, or you can make a psycho bot, or you can make an empathic bot, or a nurse bot, or whatnot. These are just data sets, and you can make it extreme by filling it with extremes. And these are the dreams that the Norman dreams I received as a targeted individual, with all sorts of extreme violence and rape and all things that made no sense at all, than just utter evil, and gathered into one pile of bullshit, actually. And these are the dreams that targeted individuals get. And if you get the lily wave, you get the Norman kind of like style, like juggled bullshit, AI soup in your brain, and that's being carried by the lily wave. With me, myself, and I used on MK Ultra, they whenever you like your person, and or you're thinking in your dream about that person, they started to, and that's absolutely terrible, because they can do that with anyone that you know, and they would kind of beat me up. They would let that person beat me up. And so if you're close to that person, or next time that you're with that person or watching at that person, and there's a feeling surfacing that you get some unexplained unease, then it's possible that you've been the victim of MK sleep, like they did with me. I was very aware. I was always going about my dreams before that. What did I dream? Because I was that dream decoder, and I did have these prophetic dreams. And so I was used to doing that, and I was used to having lucid dreams by myself as well. But not everyone has that, and you shouldn't. You should be safe in your own sacred space, in your mind, in your dream space. It should be yours and God's alone. But this is what they do, and it's MK sleep, and so right now they're using it in stores as well. That was my next point that I was going to first. Yeah, MK sleep. Who knew that we would enter that we would be forced into that mode? And I think it's terrible, and I've seen the victims. I've been a victim, and I've seen the victims, and I know what it can do, and we need to take that seriously. We do. And what they can do with it, they were like, basically they can use the same techniques as they did in McGill's University in Canada, like psychic driving. They can do that in the night. They can just repeat messages or images, subliminal messages in the brain to brainwash you into something that isn't true. I know one person that was having these dreams as well, and he was made to believe that he killed his own girlfriend. And at one point he started to awake from that lie, actually, and started looking for his ex-girlfriend, and she was alive and well, so it was a lie. But he believed it for, I think, more than 1 year. And they can use it. With me, it was used for every romantic experience that, or a prelude to a might-be romantic experience, and you started to think of the person or about the person, and then in your dreams he starts to hate you. So the next time when you're near that person, you might have very uncomfortable feelings and you don't even know why. But this is what they do in our dreams. MK sleep. And there's many stories going around. They can make you hate your own mother, for instance, or a child, or so it's terrible, and it should be not just regulated but banned. Because what's the need to enter a person's sacred in that way? There's only nefarious purposes to manipulate people on that aspect, in my opinion, and that's how I feel about it. But it's not just being done in dreams. The subliminals like Voice to Skull are already in commercial use, and I did not know that. I noticed that I read about I learned about that in a video of Targeted Individuals United in Barrie Trower, and he said it's being used in stores. Now I knew that it was used in like when you went to a movie theater, that they would subliminal you in the images on a nice cold refreshing drink, and you'd get thirsty and you'd go buy that when the break was. So this much we knew, but now they're subliminaling us in the brain in stores to buy, and use Voice to Skull, actually synthetic telepathy, to buy a certain product that is more expensive without your consent or knowing. And I'll take you to that fragment of that video with Barrie Trower in a moment, and I will also take you to, like I said, they can go empathetic in your mind, but they can also go psychopath. And there's some studies that have been done on the dorm lab with dream incubation. But there's also a thing that I'd like to connect to that are the many data sets that they can connect to that dreaming and the journeyman experience in your own brain. And that can be used for empathetic reasons, to make people more empathetic. Well, it's not like a forced dream can make you feel relaxing and empathetic, and it's something that you carry with you and can solely be, it cannot be learned, I guess. It's something that you have to carry with you.
Be able to transfer knowledge, but we will be able to transfer memories. Now, so you could have an experience like skydiving, and all of a sudden you could transfer that experience to a friend, and all of a sudden they have experienced what you have experienced. It gets even weirder, because we will be living our lives as our lives. We know our lives and our memories, but you will all of a sudden have access to anybody's life who wants to make it available to you. People will put open source their lives so others can download pieces of their lives and experience those things. That will be really strange. We won't know the difference between our own memory and a memory we acquired from someone else. Think about that.
In fact, it's legal. That stopped the conversation, didn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm trying to think. A while ago, when all of this was being experimented on and everything, somebody got the bright idea in America with this, where you hear a voice in your head, but nobody else can hear it. There are many different techniques for doing that, but you can vibrate the skull, you can send microwaves to vibrate just the eardrum, you can vibrate the cochlea inside the ear to stimulate it to produce the electricity that translates into sound. And somebody got the bright idea in America in a department store that if you could put a message into somebody's brain that they would physically hear, you could in fact indoctrinate them to spend money. And they set about doing this, and they found that, for instance, when you have a lady and a gentleman in the jewellery, and the lady's picking up something this expensive, and the gentleman's looking at something down there that expensive, you could send a message straight to the gentleman that says, put that down, you can see what she wants, she loves you, don't get that one. As if it were your inner voice. And it worked. You know, first of all, you look round, but it works. And they found that I think I've got it on record somewhere, it went up $60,000 or something a month or something, their sales. It was a phenomenal amount of profit they were making. And they also used it to stop thieves, because they can spy on people and they can say, look, we're watching you, put that back or you'll go straight to jail from here. You know, and their shoplifting went right down. And eventually they were taken to court. And the person who invented this, there are 3 patents where you can buy these machines. They're patented. I can give you the patent numbers if you want.
Yeah.
But they're patented.
Can I just ask you why you said it was legal? Sorry to...
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm coming to that. They're patented. And they went to court. But the people who were being targeted couldn't show harm, because the store would say, well, look, if we put it over a transmitter, we have jewellery on special offer for $20,000, or whether we beam it straight to your ear, there is no difference. There's no difference anyway. You know, you're either vibrating the eardrum with electricity or microwaves, or you're vibrating the eardrum with sound waves. But they couldn't prove harm. And the barristers acting for the industry said, you know, well, what are you claiming about? You know, all you're doing is hearing a message. And they lost the case. The people being targeted lost, because you couldn't prove harm. And then it took off like a rocket. And now it's used in fast food stores.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you're looking at all the burgers, and all of a sudden, you know, oh, yeah, I fancy that. Look at this cheese in that one. You know, and it's so it is actually legal, and it's not been back to court since. And you can't prove harm.
Roy has shared some stories on his feed where he was encouraged to buy alcohol, to buy socks, to buy shirts,
Yeah.
and he had this vast sort and cleaning products, kitchen products, and he had this vast storage of items that he didn't need, and you know, he's just basically
Monetise people.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, if you want to go to court in this country, you certainly won't get legal aid. That's for sure. So you're looking basically, if you want to go to court, you'll need at least £250,000 to go to court. And if you lose, you pay all the other side's costs.
So you've seen that, but let's look at this part again, where he says, where's the harm? Just a little bit.
And they went to court, but the people who were being targeted couldn't show harm because the store would say, well, look, if we put it over a transmitter, we have jewellery on special offer for $20,000, or whether we beam it straight to your ear, there is no difference.
And so I really don't understand how they won the case on that part, because if there is an advertisement going on in the store that will be audible for all to hear, and you'd made a well-informed choice, which is consent is about, a well-informed choice to buy one product or to buy another product, because you're there, you know what's the deal is clear, it's audible, everyone heard it, you can even ask advice on the deal, what is the small print on it, what is the product, etc. But here the mind is being subliminal. There is no informed consent on the beam itself, and there's no informed consent on the product. He wanted to buy another product but was led, so his behavior was influenced by the voice to skull. And by the way, voice to skull was patented for the military and the secret services. I don't think it was patented for retail and commercial use. If so, I would like to see where that is confirmed by law, that it is legal to use it by stores. And another thing on harm, voice to skull and all this technology does, the Frey effect has impact on our health. As a matter of fact, every vibration that enters your brain is like being too close to a sound system that will harm the cochlea. That is one thing. And voice to skull, you need to know the volume of that brain, of that head, and then calculate the amplitude of voice to skull so that it would not fill the brain with too much volume. Every time you send a subliminal message to one's brain directly, it creates a lesion and a heating process. And that lesion and heating process is harmful to the brain. And so you did not have an informed choice on eventual damage of the subliminal message in the store, did he? Because this might have turned out on health damage for the person in the long run. And so I'd like to challenge that lawsuit with this information, and I hope people that are entering a lawsuit will take this with them. So there might be harm taking place that this person was not told about. Hey, if you enter this store, we might subliminal you with voice to skull, leaving you at one point may or may not harm your brain. Do you wish to enter? Like that is it's so obvious, and I don't know why they didn't use that in court, but I hope someone goes back and fights this, because there's a lot of input they could have used in that lawsuit that they obviously didn't, and that's why I think that this might have been a controlled opposition lawsuit just to make it legal, and that's not okay. So there's my 2 cents. And then there's another thing that the judge should have taken into consideration, that is, if this tag is to be distributed for commercial use or just to civilians in general, the abuse of the weapons could be taken to the civilians in their own home if it's free for sale. And as a matter of fact, it appeared to be free for sale on amazing.com. That link got deleted, but it was distributed widely amongst the targeted community that they were free for sale. And the link got disabled. Thank God it's still on archive, and I will share that with you. But that's how easy people can purchase these weapons, and that should be banned as well. For one, companies would not be able to use it against civilians like in the dream sessions or in stores, and subliminals at night could be done by civilians standing by your home, and it would be very easy then, if that was banned, if that sales were banned, to determine whether or not it was government or a civilian. Can you imagine what could be done to an individual if this tech was just, I don't know, in hands of people that don't like you or have a special interest in manipulating your mind? Could be a business deal, could be a dispute of personal involvement, or just because you're a dissident.
This website is absolutely pure and utter evil. Wow. Anybody in the targeted individuals, Havana syndrome, MK Ultra survivors community, what is happening to us is for sale. And 1,246 captures, amazing1.com. And I clicked a link, and this is what they were selling. And please go to this link. This is called web.archive.org, web 2023 081106 2305 /https /amazing1.com /. Now this is the stuff that is for sale on here. This is selling stuff to hurt all of us. And the lady in question, she said to me, weapons futuristic. She said, go to this. So the weapons and futuristic stuff. Sorry about this. I'm just trying to share this tonight because I want all of the people involved in our community to share this as far and wide as possible, please, because it is so important to us. This is the stuff that is being sold to hurt us, to deliberately hurt us. And sorry about that. And I'm trying to share this before anything gets shut down or our integrity is questioned, because there's quite a few people now within our community that are doing a lot of good. And I've got a lot of respect for all of you that are trying to help us. And so this website, believe it or not, is selling stuff to hurt people. And none of it makes sense. And I'm sorry I'm rambling a little bit. All right, it's Saturday night. But I know I'm rambling a little bit. But I just wanted, you to all to find these links and please share as far and wide as possible.
It's terrible. Okay, so what's the reason for filming this, you might think? And that yet again has to do with cybernetics and the steering of thoughts that cybernetics is being used for. With the AI computer connected to the D-Wave, connected to the satellite, connected to your brain. And we've read in Robert Duncan's book that it is most definitely what targeted individuals experience is what the rest of the world will be experiencing soon. Only they use us as test objects to see how we respond, to get more evoked potentials. And they use that in the data set again. It's an accumulative situation where every thought, feeling, situation is not only monitored but also recorded and influenced. They can read and write our brain. In the book of Robert Duncan, there was the explanation that there is Tommy, and Tommy is a psychotronic prison. It is exactly that. Your brain is being hijacked at that. If you're in Tommy, then your brain is being hijacked by the AI and the satellite, and it will monitor you, but it will also interfere with your every being. And we wondered how that would work, and we already got an explanation by the AI Summit that I shared recently, that our brain is being monitored. We have a little voice inside our head that starts when we think, so we vibrate our thoughts. These words can be interpreted. These words can be typed down in the D-Wave computer system. And what we see can be seen as well and recorded in the D-Wave computer system. Now, how would you rewrite a thing like that? The Tommy system is a data set that is filled by recordings, data sets of psychopaths, prisoners of the worst kind. And what we've seen is in the summit, and I will close it with a video on the summit so you can see the AI summit. You can see where I'm hinting at. Our words are typed down. Whatever we see are typed down and interpreted, translated by an AI. Now, my point is the Tommy system is kind of like the Norman system, like the psychopath system. And they call it Norman. In Robert Duncan's book, it's called Tommy. And there's another one that came after that, but that one has kind of blocked my memory at that point. But this is a psychopath system. Norman is a psychopath system. The Tommy system is a psychopath system. Where would they need that for? Why would that be? How could they use that? Well, the targeted individuals can give you a first-hand example on it. In the army right now, they're already boasting that they can not only read our thoughts, they can type out our thoughts, and they are well aware with our every feeling, thought, and our movements, etc. We are no mystery to them anymore. But there's a need somehow to overwrite our brain. It's not our need, but it's the need of the military. And so it is a militarized system, and it's a perfect system to punish people that are not in your way of thinking. And since satellites are all, according to Robert Duncan's book, equipped with the fMRI system since, I think it was 1976. They have been recording and watching at our inner for a very long time. And so they have, on that, they have data sets, and on that, they have every evoked potential that they can think of. And they have the data sets of like Norman and Tommy. And if you have the data set of your brain, then you will need a like a bridge, and you can overlap that. If you have that bridge, which will be frequencies, you can overlap that with like Norman's thoughts. And it won't be fun if they were deep AI empathetic thoughts. If you're in an authoritarian regime. And so you will use Norman's thoughts. And so what you can do is just have your normal thoughts and have these typed out, or you'll just have a dream welling up in your brain. But Norman is there a few seconds earlier than your thoughts start to elaborate itself, and Norman steps in and says, "What do you see? Explore what Norman sees. What could it be? See, Norman sees a man is electrocuted and catches to death." While the normal inkblot AI would see a group of birds sitting on top of a tree branch, like a normal brain would interpret the ink blots that are developing in your brain. It's all, they took the extremes, and see, I'd like to see this one. A close-up of a vase with flowers. That's beautiful, right? That's your normal dreams, and how a healthy mind would interpret perhaps that inked blot. Or the usual butterfly, and all natural thoughts. And but the data set determines what you're about to see in your own body and in your own dreams. And these are my and many targeted individuals' experiences, that our brain is being grabbed in our dreams. And sometimes in the beginning of the targeting, you get it even a period during. Mine is mostly evenings, not even during the day, so it was definitely not mine. Some have it during the day, some have it during the night. And if they really hate you, you get it 24/7. And that is a horrible situation to be in. And why would you even want to rewrite a brain? Surely that shows there's a psychopathic decision behind that in itself. But this is what we get. So AI sees it in our brains. A dream is welling up, and that starts with simple movements, or because an image needs to develop. It's not just there, it needs to develop. And Norman takes over. Man jumps from floor window, and that typed out Norman thought will be your dream, because the dream will develop not in the ink blot of the face with flowers, but it will develop in door number 2. Man jumps from floor window. And that's basically the targeted individual dream hijack, what they already do. And yeah, so it's they create nightmares after nightmares after nightmares. And you can imagine that it's not just about creating your dreams with typing this out, and they take this sentence and they create the dream with it, the images with it, living images, which they can do really well with synthetic telepathy. It's just a data set being pushed through your brain, and the data set is digital. So you can just have an AI computer creating that image, and it's not getting sent to your phone, but it's getting sent to your brain. And since They can alter your emotions with that. They can make you feel love. They can make you feel fear or really sad or panic. They have it all under control. This would be a real-time experience in the dream. You feel it. You feel that you're being grabbed by the brain and that it's not yours, but it's like the experience is real time. So it gives you kind of a feeling that you're in this other world, and you know it's not yours, but you can't escape it either. And I thought this was the best explanation that I could give to targeted individuals and what is happening with them and why they are suddenly receiving all these symptoms of someone that is absolutely disturbed, while it's not. We all recognize it as not of ourselves. You feel it being pumped in your brain. You feel it going through the bones. You have the experience of bleedings after or headaches. And we all know it's not ours. And we all know that if we start to speak about these dreams, and if you're not aware of this tag, you might experience it as, have I lost my marbles? But this is the situation as is. It's already being used to not just harass people, but sheer torture. And imagine having this not just a nightmare, but this is being done to you whenever you fall asleep. Whenever you fall asleep, with the directed energy weapons to go with that. Man is shot, dumped from car. What can you do with man is shot, dumped from car? You can shoot the guy in the moment that he's being shot. You can shoot the person that is dreaming it with a shot, a directed energy shot, and then make him dream that he's being dumped in a car or from a car. And so this is really important information for you all to understand, that this is really going on, as terrible as it is. But this is what is happening to targeted individuals at one point. And well, I'd like to share that so that you just understand that it's not yours, and you have a better understanding on how it's being fed to you. And so the truth shall set you free. That is my religion, and it definitely works. And perhaps we cannot stop it at that point, but you can explain it to yourself, which takes the fear away. And I think that's the most important message to share right now, that you're just being taken over by an AI data set for the most part, as goes for the the gang stalking. I think what shall I say? There's groups on the ground indeed, like COINTELPRO, and that's a small clan that is stalking in the beginning of this, or sometimes intervenes. But for the most part, rest assured that the AI is following us. We are being tracked and traced by these satellites. We have our brain fingerprint, which will be our new passport. They're not telling you that, but they have it all via the brain mapping project, the human brain mapping project. And the military has got a hold of it, all of it. And it'll be our new ID. And we're being tracked and traced 24/7 with that ID. And they have ours, but they can also see who's in our surroundings. What brain is in our surroundings? And do we have a data set to go with that situation, that we can scare the shit out of you by making people look bad or angry at you, so that everyone you see will have this Norman response in the psychopath look, for instance, that you think, oh my word, why is everybody looking angry at me? Or why is everybody saying my name, for instance? Or it can be a curse word that is shared in that moment by 20 persons, or they'll be speaking about your personal, very private information, and you start to think that, okay, so the entire world knows about all my personal affairs, and that is a fallacy on not being informed, because it's the AI data set that they created for you that is in that moment satelliting the brains of these people that are just bystanders that happen to be there, that are in your surroundings, and they swarm them. They brain hack them in that moment. And it's been said in the NATO PDF as well that they will not hesitate to use civilians in this cognitive warfare, and this is the result. This would be the direct result. So we have the weapons, we have the dream manipulation. The psychic driving is another thing. There'll be a satellite or subliminal sounds or directed sounds towards you in the middle of the night that will repeat messages, or during the day that will repeat horrible messages, as we have seen in the MK Ultra programming they did in the psychiatric industry. There's a lot of documentation to be found on that, on MK Ultra in itself. And there was this guy that would have problems with his leg, and they said it's psychological. And this man entered that institute, and he was kept there for, I think, a few months, and he was kept asleep. And in his sleep, they found out that the tape recorder repeated, "You've killed your mother." And that is a typical example of what they do with targeted individuals right now. They are manipulating the truth and insert the lies, and the MK Ultra is represented by the psychic driving, the targeted individuals experience. And so it was really hard for me to do that research, but I did it because most of this happened to me, and I needed to know who was doing it, and I needed to know what was being done. And it was horrifying to go through that research, because it is the blackest research that you can ever dive into. It's pure Nazi stuff. But if the result is that we can create a comprehensive story on how it all fits and what is being done to you, then it has already been worth it. It has already been worth it. And so I hope that you will share this story, and that we can right now everyone is being divided, and they're trying to create hate for family members. They're trying to disconnect neighborhood connections, community connections that are of free spirit and well intent, and they're trying to disconnect that and replace that with hate. Hate thy neighbor instead of love thy neighbor, and just help each other out. They're trying to make us all be isolated, and thus will be more fragile for manipulation and misbehavior. And setups, because if you have no one else, your options are low, and you'll be inclined to take the wrong offer, for instance. And so all I can say is, if your neighbors are speaking about you, you hear their voices, it's most likely that it's just a subliminal sound aimed at your head, or right next beside you, with the voices of your neighbors. And that every manipulation must be seen as false. And you can rest assured that your neighbors know nothing about your personal situation or the lie that they invented to terrorize you with. And so there's no need to be angry with them if you know what the origin is. And there's perhaps a need to step out even more towards your neighbors and ask them how they're doing, just to break the spell. And I would like this video to result in ink blot number 5. A couple of people standing next to each other, to say the least, in good spirit. And so I hope this tiny bit of information will help you get there as the targeted individual community, but as well as a warning video for people that have not yet experienced this. It can be just that seed that you will remember in the future on a weird situation, and you think, right, didn't I hear a video on that some while ago? And then in that moment, alrighty, the truth shall set you free. And you can see through the deceit and the attempt to disconnect from all human loving forming bonds, and you can go back to the natural spiral of connection and the natural spiral of growth, where fractals meet fractals. And that's what I'd like to see. And so it's a short video, but it holds a lot of truth. And I've been living this for 3 years, and there's more for me to find. But if I've been living this for 3 years in order to research what the hell is going on, then it was worth it if I can save lives with my short videos, and it's so worth it. Yeah, I guess that's how the universe works. There's always a silver lining to be found. We need it to stop, though. These satellites need to be, because these are weapons of mass destruction if they're used in this way, just to make people crazy, or put them in extreme situations where they feel they have to lash out. And that's exactly what their aim is. Their aim is to create hate and havoc. And yeah, we have to stop the weaponized satellites. We have to stop the WMD. We have to stop the fMRI on the satellites, so that our neural rights don't have to be protected by law, but are protected by dismantling the system. So I hope this was enough for now. I'm gonna edit the part of the AI summit next to this, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. So bless you all, and united we stand. And hopefully next to each other.
Hey.
Quick homage to that. Serie set a 9-hour and 50-minute timer.
Playing the Beatles.
So we've all had that experience, but what we want to get to is, so why suddenly does it feel like we should be concerned about AI now? We haven't been concerned about it for the last 10 years, so why should we feel like we should be concerned now? Go ahead.
Well, because something shifted in 2017. There was sort of a swap that happened Indiana Jones style between the kind of engine that was driving AI. And what happened is, technically, it's a model called Transformers. It's really interesting. It's only 200 lines of code. It's very simple. But the effect is this. When I went to college, AI had many different sub-disciplines. And if you were studying computer vision, you'd use one textbook and you'd go over here to one classroom. If I was studying robotics, I'd go over here to another classroom with a different textbook. I couldn't read papers across disciplines. And every advance in one field couldn't be used in another field. So there'd be like a 2% advance over here, and that didn't do anything for, say, like music generation if it was from image generation. What changed is this thing called the Great Consolidation. All of these became one field under the banner of language. The deep insight is that you could treat anything as a kind of language, and the AI could model it and generate it. So what does that mean? Well, of course you can treat the text of the internet as language. That seems sort of obvious. But you can also treat DNA as language. It's just a set of base pairs, 4 of them. You can treat images as language. Why? Because it's just, RGB is just a sequence of colors that you can treat like tokens of text. You can treat code as language. Robotics is just a motion, a set of motions that you can treat as a language. The stock market, ups and downs, it's a type of language. Suddenly, NLP, natural language processing, became the center of the universe.
So,
in technology, Tristan
And
Harris
right now
and
you're
Asa
gonna
Raskin.
witness what they entered in words they will make into a video clip and song, but imagine that being normal. And imagine the complications that will give to your psyche, and if it's used for evil, which it is.
So I'll let go of all that I know. Dead dreams and submarines adrift in the cold, and I'll find home at the end of the road, waiting to see what unfolds. In the redwoods, in the silence, I am empty, I am timeless. In the plenty, I am choking, I am ready to be open. Will you love me in this ocean? If I'm frozen, if I'm broken, will you love me in this ocean? If I'm frozen, if I'm broken, so I'll let go of all that I know. Dead dreams and submarines adrift in the cold, and I'll find home at the end of the road, waiting to see what unfolds. And I'll let go of all that I know. Dead dreams and submarines adrift in the cold, and I'll find home at the end of the road, waiting to see what unfolds.
Examples, because it's so tempting when you look out at all the different AI demos to think, wow, these are all different demos, but underneath the hood, they're actually the same demos. So we want to give you that kind of X-ray vision. So you all have probably seen Stable Diffusion or DALL-E or any of these, like type in text, out comes an image. That's what I use to make the music video. Well, how does that work? You type in Google Soup, and it translates it into the language of images, and that's how you end up with, Google Soup. The reason why I wanted to show this image in particular is sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, but these large language models, these golems, they don't really understand what's going on underneath. They don't have semantic understanding. But just notice what's going on here. You type in Google Soup, it understands that there's a mascot which represents Google, which then is in soup, which is hot, it's plastic, it's melting in the hot soup, and then there's this great visual pun of the yellow of the mascot being the yellow of the corn. There's actually a deep amount of semantic knowledge embedded in this space. All right, let's try another one. Instead of images and text, how about this? Can we go from the patterns of your brain when you're looking at an image to reconstructing the image? So the way this worked was they put human beings inside an fMRI machine. They had them look at images and figure out what the patterns are, translate from image to brain patterns. And then, of course, they would hide the image. So this is an image of a giraffe that the computer has never seen. It's only looking at the fMRI data, And this is what the computer thinks the human is seeing.
What?
Yeah. Now, to get state of the art, here's where the combinatorial aspects, why you can start to see these are all the same demo. To do this kind of imaging, the latest paper, the one that happened even after this, which is already better, uses stable diffusion, uses the thing that you use to make art. Like, what should a thing that you use to make art have anything to do with reading your brain? But of course, it goes further. So in this one, they said, can they understand the inner monologue, the things you're saying to yourself in your own mind? Mind you, by the way, when you dream, like your visual cortex runs in reverse, so your dreams are no longer safe. But we'll try this. So they had people watch a video and just narrate what was going on in the video in their mind. So there's a woman, she gets hit in the back, she falls over. This is what the computer reconstructed the person thinking. See a girl, looks just like me, get hit in the back, and then she is knocked off. So our thoughts, are starting to be decoded. Yeah. Just think about what this means for authoritarian states, for instance. Or if you want to generate images that maximally activate your pleasure sensor or anything else.
Can you define what you mean by the word neuroweapons?
The idea of using any instrument or method as means of contending against others is a very formal definition of a weapon. It need not be something that is malevolent per se, but again, by operational definition, what a weapon does is in some way alters that individual's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, physical nature, health, in such a way that is going to be more amenable to the individual who is yielding the weapon. So in other words, I'm changing an individual's stance towards me in some way and making them engage in a stance that's more aligned with what I want them to be. That's a formal definition of a weapon that comes right out of the Oxford English Dictionary. Clearly, when we think of weapons, we think of things like bombs, tanks, planes, boats, soldiers. And that's not incorrect. I think the more colloquial use of a weapon represents some instrument that's going to induce some kind of morbidity or mortality. And when utilized in these bellicose constructs, that's certainly one of the ideas of weaponology. But weaponology, as we discussed last time, can also include things that I do to my own forces, whether it's the human resources or whether the actual forces themselves, to make them more efficient in their mission of national security, intelligence, and defense, not only in terms of what I do to others. In that sense, if we put the neuro prefix to weapon, what we're really looking at is harnessing the neurological system, both peripherally and centrally, and its functions of thought, emotions, and behavior, so as to then yield instruments, methods, techniques, tactics, and tools that can then be leveraged against others, so as for us to then gain some purchase over their thoughts, emotions, and conduct. So a neuroweapon is essentially any weaponized method or tool that acts through the nervous system or at the nervous system, upon the nervous system, to influence and change the attitudes, feelings, thoughts, behaviors of others.
Thanks for that overview. So when we talk about neuroweapons, what types of technologies fall under that umbrella?
I think what is important to understand is that the basic technologies of the brain sciences can be parsed into two general categories, very generally. Those technologies that are used for assessing the brain, and those technologies that are used for accessing and affecting the brain. And underneath those two general ideas, we can assess what's going on in individuals and groups of individuals' brains so as to be able to gain some notion of what nodes and networks are involved in different processes of cognition, emotion, and various actions, and what their dispositions might be. And we can use those both as information and as possible reconnaissance targets, if you will, to then affect those substrates, those processes and mechanisms, either indirectly through the use of narratives, memes, symbols, iconographies, psychological operations, human terrain teaming engagements, or more directly. Now, when we're talking about things that are direct, now we're talking about interventional things. And given the fact that the neurosciences are indeed a biomedical life science that also conjoins the physical sciences, now what we're talking about is those things that tend to fall under the rubric of biological toxins and chemical weapons, broadly construed as drugs, microbes or bugs, toxins, devices, and data. And it's those latter two, devices and data, that are really becoming ever more prominent as a consideration and a concern with regard to international oversight and perhaps regulation of what weaponology should and perhaps could be, and how neuroscience and neurotechnologies are then leverageable and employable as weapons on a variety of different fronts, not only being used kinetically, but increasingly being used as non-kinetic instruments to effect disruptive effects rather than destructive effects per se.
So a number of international weapons conventions govern the use of neuroweapons. Given those controls, could you talk a bit about the threat that neuroweapons pose today?
Well, you're right. You made a good point that at present, the Biological Toxin Weapons Convention, Chemical Weapons Convention, along with other signatory treaties and international law, do place particular constraints and, in some cases, definable prescription against the development, import, export, and use of a variety of tools and techniques that would be viable as weapons. Again, there are certain drugs, there are certain bugs, if you will, certain toxins that are prescribed and constrained. We understand that. But where things become a little bit more amorphous and ambiguous is when we then begin to discuss things like neurotechnological devices. Certainly, these devices have gained in their sophistication and their capability over the past decade and a half, and their viability and potential value for use in various forms of weaponology has increased as a consequence of not only their sophistication and capability, but also their facility of being developed and then being employed operationally. In many cases, their technological readiness level and or military readiness level is up to par, so as to at least consider forms of testing and deployment that would then render them operational under a range of circumstances and conditions. That has not escaped the auspices of many of the groups that are participatory in the Biological Toxins and Weapons Convention, most notably the Australia group, that a couple of years ago at the review committee, the RevCon, of the Biological Toxins and Weapons Convention, noted that these devices certainly need to be an increased focus and should be addressed as part of the BTWC. But beyond that, I think there are some interesting things that also need to be considered. The last two things we were talking about were devices and data. And I think when we're talking about devices, it's not just the devices that are the neuro devices themselves, but are there enabling devices? Are there current technologies that can be then radically leveling that could then allow the use of a variety of these different neuroscientific tools and techniques to then be implemented as either instruments of mass disruption and or perhaps as tools of intermediate to mass destruction? In this case, what we're looking at is the use of drones, for example, unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles, ground vehicles, aquatic vehicles, to deliver payloads of various forms of neurological chemicals, neurological microbes, whether those be bacteria and or viruses, neurological toxins, to a variety of different populations that range from the individual to a fairly large aggregate of individuals utilizing multiple drones and or other forms of unmanned vehicles. The other thing that we're concerned about is certainly the use of gene editing techniques, CRISPR, Cas9, Cas12, not just taken alone, but in concert with extant gene editing techniques. The relative ease of acquisition of these techniques and the relative ease of use, again, this is not for the completely naive, but someone with basic gene editing and or microbiological skills and molecular biological skills could in fact utilize these techniques to modify an existing microbe, an existing virus, perhaps even existing structures of various organisms to create something that is modified or perhaps anew. And the problem we have with that is that those particular new entities might not currently be covered, categorized by the Biological Toxins and Weapons Convention. So here we have the opportunity to sidestep the scope and tenor of those conventions by creating something new or modifying that heretofore has not been listed as a weaponizable agent. Furthermore, if we take a look at some other enabling technologies, for example, nanotechnology, nanotechnology can be used to provide scaffolds or micelles that then allow the autoassembly of molecules in situ, allow their penetrance into a biological system. They can work as chaperones. as well, we can utilize these nanomaterials independently because of some of the characteristics that the nanomaterials possess and some characteristics that can be imbued upon them. Autoaggregation, clumping, disruption, and these can have physiologically disruptive effects when then introduced into a biological system. And one of the more recent developments has demonstrated that these types of nanomaterials are aerosolizable. We can spray them into the air. Now, again, the aerosolizable field at present is rather limited in terms of its size and with regard to its durability and its distance. But these are simply steps toward what may then be probabilities and or possibilities of how nanomaterials might be used either alone and or in tandem with other things to either be force multipliers and potentiators or to be used as weaponizable entities themselves. And last, but certainly not least, is the idea of weaponized data, weaponized information. And my colleague Diane DeEulis from National Defense University and working with our senior scholar Joe DeFranco, now of George Mason University, working with some of our colleagues down at SOCOM and now at AFWorks up here in the DC area, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Snow, we've looked at how data might in fact be influential with regard to a force multiplication, not only to engage what the brain sciences are capable of doing, but also to engage the brain sciences in weaponizable ways. I would posit, as a brain scientist myself, that much of the contemporary trajectory of what the brain sciences are recently doing and are intended to do, are aiming to be done, the larger scale and very innovative projects, for example, in imaging and brain mapping, in trying to access the brain remotely on a variety of scales and to engage the brain's functions on a variety of scales, all require big data. And big data that is then yoked to some form of decision technology and or some level of artificial intelligence to be able to sensibilize those data, assimilate those data, synthesize them, and use them in a real-time accessible way. Now, of course, we're concerned about things like custodianship and proprietary nature of data, and access to the data and its relative hackability, and all of these represent real concerns. But more than that, I think, is the issue that to really force multiply the brain sciences or any area of bioscience and technology utilizing big data, you require cells of data that then must be yoked. In other words, you have nodes and edges in networks of data that then allow this level of real-time acquisition, assimilation, synthesis, use, dispersal. And it's not so much the actual nodes themselves that we worry about with regard to their hackability, but instead the networks, the edges of those nodes that allow their interaction on a variety of scales and levels and magnitudes. And those are the things that the stackability of those nodes within networks really gives rise to their relative hackability. And what we're worried about in this concern are a number of things. Number one, that the more data I have about an individual or groups of individuals, the more information clearly I'm able to amass about them, and the more I can use that information in a variety of ways. Many ways that are benevolent, certainly, but also in ways that may be malevolent. In other words, the more I know about you, the more I know where your relative strengths, capabilities, weaknesses, and flaws lie, and the more I can target those things in ways that are specific to you. And that can be across a range of dimensions. It could be your biology. It could be things that have to do with your psychology. It could have to be things with your social engagements, or even something that has to do with your economics. So what I'm able to do is vulnerabilize you by virtue of the amount of information I'm able to put together about you and then yoke that to other information. I can track you in real time based upon your various movements and the various kinetics that come out of your social media, cell phone, and how you're using, for example, credit cards in a variety of different loci in your geographies. I can link you to others in your social chain, and each one of those then becomes a viable nexus by which I can then vector some influential effect, disruptively or destructively. If we take that down to the biological level, the more I know about you biologically in terms of your genome and your genetics and particular aspects of your phenotype, the more I may be able to develop precision pathologies that can affect you specifically in ways that are unique and peculiar to you. And I can do that in a very up-close and personal way to disrupt a variety of your physiological processes and therefore create relative devastation, disruption, and destruction perhaps of the things that you are and the things that you do. But I can go beyond that as well. I can corrupt individuals' data by inserting information, very, very, very low level, minute information that changes the entire tenor of the information about them. In other words, the information that exists about you defines, if you will, your online presence. It defines your cyber presence, your cyber identity. It is your cyber fingerprint, footprint, retinal print. And by altering those data in some way, by inserting things or omitting things from your medical record, particularly things that are a bit obtuse or a bit amorphous, what I may be able to do is to insert or remove certain things that are crucial to the way you are regarded and the way you are treated. I can, for example, put into your medical record that you have a familial history of psychiatric disease, or that you particularly have some underlying biological condition that may require treatment or that may negate your treatment. And as a consequence, the way you are not only regarded medically, publicly, politically, legally, and economically, but the way you are engaged and the nature of your engagements can be affected on a variety of scales, literally from the cellular all the way to the social. So when we're talking about the viable weaponology of things neuro, or any really area of bioscience and tech, what we're worried about is those scalar effects that are both disruptive and ultimately, by virtue of ripple, destructive.
And I think the reason that really Dr. John Hall and myself have do a lot of radio shows is just to help the public become more informed. What are these technologies, that they really exist, and that the U.S. government has a long history of using humans in experimentation. The human consciousness has been deciphered for the most part, and this opens Pandora's box. In a lot of ways. One of the weapon systems called Satan. Which stands for Silent Fascination Through Dapping Networks, and these are neural networks. They used to be, it came out of the CIA's programs on MK-Ultra behavior modification. Now, you can just simply cause pain in a person when correlated with some action. Well, you can alter behavior. But they've taken us many steps past that. They can replay very specific pains into a person. So you can imagine an MP3 player that has recorded brainwaves of pains of people being shot, burned, and other kinds of tortures. You can literally replay those into the enemy's mind. Full mind melding, in a sense. It's a great interrogation tool. So if you saw a movie called Inception, and that's where they try to get into the person's head, plant ideas, pull out information. That's all exactly where the technology's at. It has a lot of downfalls that, doesn't work well with some people, and that's why they're trying to improve it. It takes a lot of time. You can't just do this to somebody in one day and walk away. So as a warfare weapon, it's a better spy tool, intelligence gathering tool. When you clone a brainwaves, and it's more complicated than I'm describing, but you are able to see what the other person is seeing, and you're able to hear what the other person's hearing, as well as influence them. So there are a whole bunch of trickeries once you're cloned with somebody. Let's say you wanted to kill somebody with this. Well, there's a long list, and you can find a lot of them in my last book. But you could dip a knee while someone's walking down the stairs, make them tumble. You can cause all sorts of illnesses. The CIA calls them lingering ailments, to disable the person, make them feel sick all the time, and have the symptoms of many diseases, yet not have the disease itself. And as I said, spying is the big thing. The wording's changed quite a bit. They used to call it psi warfare, psychic warfare, and those have different meanings, different people, but the concepts have been proven over and over again. That another movie like Avatar, it sort of like that experience where you're living in someone else's mind or body, and they use sensory deprivation tanks. The brain will self-organize with external stimulus signals, be it from another person, if their own body isn't being provided any stimulus, so the dreams become reality. So yeah, the technology is much more advanced than people think. In 1973, an Army intelligence officer came forward to speak about wars that we were having with Russia during the Cold War, that they were beaming our population with microwaves at a psychotronic signal frequency, and that signal frequency was supposed to subdue our population, make them calm, placid, as if we were the aggressor. So we started doing the same to their population. And so there's been admission that these technologies have been used for a long time, both in secret wars and probably overtly by the government as well. So the possibilities are limitless for good or evil. I mean, we're tampering with the very soul itself. The part of the breakdown of the personality was done by Dr. Ewan Cameron, head of the field in psychiatry. He took a few patients with mild depression and brainwashed them. And washing means completely erasing their personality. Now, he used electroshock and drugs and something essentially called two-track tapes that would say your mother hates you, just a bunch of negative things over and over again while they're sleeping with these helmets on. Now, in the modern day version of brainwashing, they use computer chatterboxes, and so these can do far more than just a two-track tape, but they're still using the same techniques, and whatever bothers you, creates the greatest stress level, they will continue on that track. And the people that have sort of escaped it have great confidence in themselves and their social networks, and aren't bothered by these negative typed-in messages. And so, yeah, it's personalized now to each individual. And one of the creepy aspects of mind control, not being able to tell your own thoughts, desires, and feelings from those injected. One colonel who was working on this technology, it was called psychotronics at the time, he said with 5 channels, the target feels sympathetic influence. At 12, it feels like an alien influence, and at 15, they cannot distinguish their own thoughts from those injected. So, yeah, it depends on the level of technology being used on the person. And, in the worst case scenario, maybe we all are being influenced and controlled. And subliminal messages are being piped into our dreams and our heads. And, hopefully it's not that bad, and they're just working on targeting specific individuals, which makes the weapon system much more powerful than just blanketing over a population. They're testing every aspect of mind control, and they have really conquered the human mind. And one of the more interesting aspects is that of remote influence. Now, remote viewing has connotations of voodoo, but this is all based on technology, and this is cloning the visual cortex and audio cortexes of the human brain onto another person, or integrating it even with computer systems. So the combinations they're called hive minds. So if you're trying to create a really efficient work group, the CIA right now uses about 3 or 4 people in a group, and they synchronize their brains, their minds, and their major rhythms. And that's when secrets begin to sleep, as Colonel John Alexander said. And during this phase, well, it's great for interrogation, mind probing, but it's also a state of increased intelligence. You're, in a sense, adding brain tissue, but wirelessly, virtual neurons to each of the participants. You can see that might be a great, swarm theory, they call it, by the RAND Corporation, or Beowulf clusters. Wolf clusters is another term that's used, where you can network human beings faster than you would through cell phones, for example. And there's no evidence of it. So there's no, the brain itself is the receiver, and the active sensing technologies are able to pick that up. And so there's no evidence that they're in some sort of spy group or black ops mission. So it's used, it's being tested for that as well. In the experimentation, there are people we found that get V2K, and the V2K is only positive, although that's a rare case. Usually it's always negative messaging. Some people get tortured. Some people get both. And it runs the gamut. So you can imagine if you're trying to test a new drug, you want a random sample and you want to pull out all the different variables. And it's called discriminant function analysis. And so you want to test it on different people in different types of variations of the hypnosis, of the mind control, of the stalking, and to see what is most effective. And they've found a way to automate it and literally ramp it up. And I think that's one reason why we're saying more TIs. It could be also that more TIs have access to the internet, and that's helping people get together and share notes. But it does look like it's being ramped up.
Yeah, and you know, to me it looks like it's going more toward a societal or a large span of people, crowd control, the thought control of a nation type of thing. I mean, that's right. It's not going to just be, controlling this one and that one individually. It almost seems like it's got to go nationwide or even worldwide.
This is more effective than normal propaganda. You can affect people while they're sleeping and working. They don't even need to shut off their televisions to get programming. So every country in the world, of course, their goal is to shepherd their people into one conformed thinking pattern. You can understand why this is so top secret. The very concept of free will is destroyed. We've been debating this for thousands of years, and to have that argument finalized, well, all of Western philosophy, and from crime and punishment to religion, relies on this concept of free will. They can't just announce it and then say, oh, by the way, we've been running torture experiments on people all around the world. There is a weapon system discussed in my book called Satan, and it stands for Silence is Fascination Through Adapting Networks. So you can imagine you have a behavioral modification tool weapon. You can have dial-in lethality simply by manipulating the humans themselves to hurt themselves. And it uses all the best medical discoveries except in the negative. Fire can be used to keep people warm and heat food, kill bacteria, or it can be used to burn down villages. And so this is the extreme example of weaponization of the medical profession. Once you understand how large of a sample set, how much human suffering they've allowed to put into this, developing it, the number of dollars, there's no way they're going to give this up. And this is here to stay. And the people in control that are, I'm sure, so seduced by its power that they rather see the human race go away before this does.
Mr. Thomas McClelland?
I'm 59 years old from New York City. I've been a victim of ongoing non-consensual human subject experimentation temptation for my entire adult life and possibly may have been a victim since my childhood. I have been targeted with ongoing microwave weapons as well as drugging with neurotoxic contaminants covertly placed on articles of clothing as well as on other personal possessions. I believe my being a non-consensual human test subject is related to the CIA's MK Ultra behavior modification program that began in the 1950s. Moreover, after I read a July 1963 CIA MK Ultra report that became unclassified in 1994 and emphasized that it would be necessary to test unwitting citizens in their ordinary day-to-day activities without their knowledge in the final stage of the testing program, I believe that I could be one of those many thousands of civilians that were unwittingly tested in the CIA's behavior modification program. There you go. Getting the government to take action concerning acknowledgement and putting an end to unethical consensual human experimentation that has also been a part of our country's past history is of great concern to me. I believe that there could have been other members of my family that were victims also. And
very good.
Please.
Thank you for your courage. Mr. Brian Wrong? Miss Anya Briggs?
My name is Anya Briggs, and I am a private citizen and resident of New York City. I have been and continue to be experimented on against my will and without my permission as a human test subject and as a targeted individual forced into trauma-based mind control programs. Because of this ongoing experimentation, torture, and abuse since 2008 and before, I have endured the following physical and psychological symptoms: extreme, debilitating, and chronic fatigue, weakness, and dizziness for days and weeks at a time. Lack of motor control, as well as the sensation of being physically controlled by an unseen force. My left arm occasionally experiences pain and discomfort from an object of unknown origin moving under my skin and being activated somehow. I have an unusual dental filling of unknown origin on the side of one of my back upper right teeth and no memory of having this procedure done. And I have x-ray printouts and a signed affidavit from my dentist stating this. Said dental filling causes me sharp pain, discomfort, and sensitivity. I have experienced extreme itching, burning, and pain in my right leg that turned into an intense bright pink and then disappeared completely after several minutes, and I have photographs of this happening in real time. I have had a stretched uterus, and yet I have never consciously, and to my knowledge, been pregnant. I have had equidistant sores that have appeared on both of my subscapularis muscles at the same time. I have been drugged. I've been abducted from my home. I've had guns pointed at my head. I've had death threats. And much, much worse, believe it or not, by being in these programs and experiments. The after effects of this have made me socially avoidant most days, and it is extremely hard to establish relationships with people I can trust as a result of these abominations, and I thank the committee for hearing my statement.
Thank you. Mr. Ken Rhodes?
One, we are actually, I think people are being so good about keeping the pace, and this is so stressful for many of them, we can allow them to slow down just a little bit, okay? This is important for them.
My name is Ken Rhodes from Michigan. I'm here to tell you that the use of electronic weapons and mind control is helping the United States against the American people. You may think this will never affect you, but there will come a day when this will affect all of you, your children, their children, and every generation from this day forward. I'm here to speak for every person affected by these horrific crimes against humanity. I can't go. Thank you.